Welcome to Lickin' on Lending, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of the mortgage industry. Your host, David Lickin, bringing you the latest insights, trends, and updates from the world of mortgages. Whether you're a seasoned industry veteran or just getting started, this show is your go-to source for all things mortgage. Let's get started. This is Lickin' on Lending. Now your host, David Lickin.
Folks, I'm really excited to be joined with Alice Alvey today on the podcast. And Alice and I are going to be interviewing a real special guy in this industry, Bill Cosgrove. Bill is the CEO of Union Home Mortgage. It's a high-growth, full-service retail, wholesale, and consumer direct lender. They've been extremely successful. They've grown like crazy over the last few years. But Bill's leadership and his insights into what is going on in the industry is the reason we have him back. And again, he's been back. He's been on many times. We're really honored to have him on talking about some significant developments that are going on in the industry. Folks, the IMB conference, the Independent Mortgage Bankers Conference, came to us from the MBA as a result of Bill's leadership when he was the chairman of the MBA during his tenure and working with the MBA. So we're grateful for many things that Bill has. His perspective is someone that a lot of people pay attention to. It's one that I pay attention to. So Alice, excited to have you join you. And you recently retired from Union Home. So congratulations, Alice, on the retirement.
Yes, thank you, Dave. Thank you. It was bittersweet because Union Home is a wonderful place to be, but I know Tisha McGee and the team there who are going to keep the Union Home University legacy that we built alive and continue to grow with the growth of the company.
Yeah, I love the high growth, and you are doing that. Bill Cosgrove.
Yes, sir.
So good to have you on, friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, David. Appreciate it. Alice, wonderful to see you, partner.
It's partner. I love it.
I get the partner for life, don't I? I really want partner for life.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bill, we could read on and on about your bio, but the part that I like the most is a proud father of three and a loving husband. I think of all the things in our industry, it requires so many demands of us on our personal time and how to balance that and to successfully be a father of three and a loving husband. Kudos to you, Bill, for that accomplishment. Of all the accomplishments, that honestly is the best one. And we think we'll remember you for a long, long time to come, Bill. But the reality is it's going to be your family that'll be putting flowers on your grave.
Yeah.
And if I'm around, I'll go put flowers on it if I'm up in the area.
Thank you.
But the reality is,
I'm
really interested in your perspective. We're talking about high growth. You recently acquired NRL Lending, Nation's Reliable Lending out of Houston. They were a client of mine, good people, knew them well, and have a lot of respect for many aspects of it. But it's indicative, Bill, of what is going on in the industry. I want to get your perspective on consolidation. Are we going to continue to see this kind of consolidation within the industry, do you believe?
Yeah, David, thank you. Yes, I believe so. I think the industry is still, unfortunately, extremely, we're over capacity. I still think there's too many companies. I think there's still too many loan officers chasing too few deals, mortgage loans, whatever you want to call them. And I do think that if you look at the sort of ecosystem of housing and housing finance, and all you got to do is look at the record low margins, and you got to fight to the death to put your loan officer in a position to win that loan, which is bringing record low margin per transaction. The economics are more difficult, and I don't say this lightly. They're more difficult than I've ever seen in 39 years in this business. So when you put that all together, we're probably 4 years into what's going to be a much longer term adjustment in our industry.
Yeah, I agree. Bill, I want to go back and talk a little bit about your commenting about the changes and how we're fighting for loans. Bill, you started as a loan originator yourself. You started as a loan officer. And so contrast what you're seeing the loan officers today and how they're having to fight for deals versus what you had to do back then. Some things haven't changed, but a lot has. Give us your perspective, please.
I think everything has changed. I think, but the actual documentation, the 1003 hasn't changed, right? You still need to verify income. You still need credit scores, qualifying ratios. You still need to verify your assets to close. That's the same. Nothing else. That's 4% of the business. The 96%, David and Alice, gosh, this better than I, has all changed. And I think if you look at it, obviously the consumer of today, they want a fast process that has to be accurate. We're all struggling with a way to make it easier, faster, and cheaper to close a mortgage loan. And there are a lot of reasons, but technology has really not been advanced in the mortgage industry. I would pin that on the regulators, pin that on the government that really has stopped the innovation per se. But if you look at it all, it's a collision of a lack of business coupled with an increased cost of doing business. It's a collision course that is not healthy.
Do you think that the traditional loan officer is still going to have a place in the market 3 years even from now, 2 and 3 years from now?
I do. I think they've been talking about the demise of the loan officer for 30 of the almost 40 years I've been.
Yeah, since we've
so I think it's an emotional process, right? There's a million options. There's a million loan options. Even if technology comes, it's still a technical business. You're still talking about hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I still believe that most customers need a level of expertise. They need help to a certain extent. But yeah, I think there's not really a demise of the great loan officer. I really don't.
Yeah, Bill, I think I agree with you. And I think technology is going to be a better enabler to get back to what a loan officer should do. And that's providing the relationship component to the transaction. The reassurance is the biggest transaction most people are ever doing in their lives. So I think we're getting back when we truly employ the technology that's coming on the market and it's really there, then their loan officers get back to the most important part of their job.
I agree. I think the one technology, and I'm a CEO, I'm not a tech expert, but the one tech I think that has the stickiness is probably AI, right? So for 20 years we heard this is coming, it's going to change things. Nothing has changed things. But I think AI is different where it sets itself up for our industry. I think the regulators are becoming confident and comfortable with it. Obviously, consumers are becoming confident and comfortable with it. And so I do believe that after 20 years of chasing rainbows and dreams and big talk, I do think that AI is the one technology that could make the difference.
Yeah, I really believe I'm seeing evidence more and more that it's actually going to deliver on the promise. Bill, you talk about loan officers, the role will not change, but we've all talked and struggled with the compensation levels. The MBA statistics put out that if you look at the total cost of originating a mortgage loan, all in, 60% of it is typically compensation paid out in the form of loan origination compensation, MLOs, much of it's going to the production side of the business. How do we work through that? It doesn't seem tenable for that to continue as it has. Many are looking for a solution, but I want to get your perspective on it. It's a challenging issue to take on.
And I don't actually even pin it on LO comp. I pin it on the all-in complete ecosystem of the amount of money it takes to close a loan. So I do believe it's too complicated, too many hands are in the process, too many steps. So it's not really all of, obviously LO comp is a part of it, but I do believe the overall cost of originating, processing, underwriting, re-underwriting 5 times, getting to the closing table and adjusting again, and all these things lead up to increased cost. I think what's happened in the old days when you had the good faith estimate, you didn't have the first LE, all that did nothing to protect the consumer. It has not helped the consumer, and all it's done is made the process more difficult and more costly for the consumer. So I think as time goes on with regulators and regulation, they really need to get the input of industry, because what has changed in the last 15 years has really not done a damn thing to protect consumers. It's only made housing and housing finance more expensive. and more expensive for us to deliver a product. So I think LO compensation is one of 10 things that really needs to be looked at. But I don't think LO comp in and of itself, David, is the actual problem.
So, Bill, you brought up about the length of time and the back and forth, and that's, as you mentioned, with TRID, right? So you've got the back and forth with the GFE, and then, oh, listen to me. With the good faith, we haven't had a good faith estimate for years, but with the LE and the CD and all the back and forth.
We let those old things slip back.
They do. Old habits die hard. But at the end of the day, do you really see that with the CFPB now being on the rails, that we could get any change to try and make this easier? Are we in a position with all this change happening to put some of that back on the table?
I think we are. And if you look at TRID and what it's accomplished for the consumer, I would argue it's accomplished nothing but raising the cost of housing finance for a consumer. That's all it has accomplished.
Yeah, maybe fair lending is one issue that it's a part of the regulation that I think we could pay attention to and that could continue on. But man, good point, Alice. It's on the rails. CFPB is on the rails. And we see just the announcement today. I don't know if you saw the announcement today. We're recording this on Friday, the 21st. So I want to put the timestamp on it. The president and CEO of Freddie Mac was just fired, and their senior staff was put on hold. So we've got so much changing inside of our industry right now. It's really dramatic. And one of the things that's out there is the recent acquisition of Redfin by Rocket. Then you look at your acquisition, you look at the whole race to get to the top of the sales funnel. It seems to be what it's about more, at least with a Rocket acquisition. Love to get your perspective on that very landmark acquisition.
So, David, the first thing I want to say is the headlines today on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are something none of us have ever seen in our careers, right? But we've got a level set here. At the end of the day, mortgage industry needs a flow of capital. And that flow of capital, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and Ginnie Mae have been a wonderful flow of capital for the housing finance system. And we cannot forget, we have the best housing finance system ever created on the face of the earth. And a big part of that creation is Ginnie Mae, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac. I'm not sure what plans the current administration, the Trump administration, has for Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie. But at the end of the day, these entities are important. They're important for housing finance. They're important for consumers, neighborhoods, the largest investment that families make in their homes. So again, I cannot tell you and don't know the direction of the politics, but I can tell you as a lifelong participant in the housing finance process, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae are very important.
Is it still a wait and see at this point then, right? This is all just fresh off the press today. The CFPB, the funding's cut, or discussions about the funding are on the table. The bills have been presented but not signed. I want to make sure that's clear as of today. But there's no plan for where the CFPB would go next, right? It's just, don't fund them. But then, if you don't fund them, then what are they going to do? Who's going to monitor those regulations? And now this with Freddie Mac. So what do you do as a mortgage banker on a day-to-day when all this is in the news and is thrown up in the air? Can you still stay business as usual?
Yeah. So as a mortgage banker, I think you just keep doing the right thing. You just keep doing the right thing. And I know that might sound like a silly comment, but not really understanding and knowing the direction of the entities, you just keep doing what you know is right to do and keep your eyes open. I think if the Trump administration wants to skinny, right size, make it more productive, get rid of whatever they consider to be dead weight at FHFA, Fannie, Freddie, CFPB, that I could buy that. I could understand that. But at the end of the day, these entities are really important for Americans. They're important for housing. They're important for housing finance. And I think that if they want to make them more efficient, if they want to reduce the cost of what they represent to the government on the government payroll, all that's well and good. But at the end of the day, you cannot damage those entities to the point
Yeah.
that they damage housing finance, right?
And anything we're going to say here today is pure speculation because we don't know. We got Pulte in there now. He's leading FHFA, and we're seeing the first move he's making is one that's got all of us our back. Is it taking out duplicity that's in there, the perceived duplicity because we have Fannie and Freddie? Do we just need one GSE in the mix? It's all remains to be seen. But I think the most important part is we know the housing finance system is stable. It needs to stay in place. I am very hopeful that they're not going completely crazy on this, but it does seem a little craziness going on right at the moment, at least with announcements today.
Well, David, I want to make one point. Yeah. This is really important to us at Union Home, really important to me. I really believe that with FHFA, when you don't really have a natural competitor, a lot of bad things happen over a long period of time. And there could be a fleeting thought that Fannie and Freddie should turn into one. That would be a large mistake. It would be a mistake for housing. It would be a mistake for housing finance, the participants of housing finance. The consumer wouldn't benefit. I understand you want to continue to bring private capital to the table to compete. But again, we must not forget that the foundation of the system we have today is the best ever created on the face of the earth. Yeah. And keeping both Fannie and Freddie, you could skinny them, you can make them more competitive, efficient, all the above. But if two turns into one, that would be devastating to housing in America.
For years, we called them the evil twins because some of the things that's gone on between the two of them. But again, having some competition out there, you raise a really good point. As we look at the secondary markets, you and I have both been around for a long time, as well as Alice. Remember the one headline a number of years ago, it was back in the mid-'90s. There was a headline that says, do we even need Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac anymore because the capital markets have become so efficient and effective. We know what capital markets are. They're fickle as anything can be. They are here when the times are good, and when the markets are not, they fold up. And we saw them fold up like a cheap tent or like a cheap umbrella the last time and went away. Thank God we have them. So that's a little history on that. Your comments about that perspective, from that perspective. I know you share that with me.
I do. I think it's simple. If you take away the quote-unquote explicit government guarantee, mortgage business and housing finance is extremely risky business. And once in a while, I think we all forget that. It's extremely risky business. And I can't speak for a bank, I'm not a bank. If I ran a bank and you don't have an explicit backstop, the mortgage business becomes very difficult. And I think that if you just look at the ebb and flow of private capital in our business, it's been choppy at best. And if you don't, choppy at best, and I don't blame them, but it's been very choppy at best. And if you not had the constant flow of Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie, and you just left housing finance to the private market, I think over time it'd be devastating results. The combination of the two, where you have the constant flow of capital through the government enterprises.
And they really do have different technology still today. We need the technology that they're always out in front of. They're the ones moving forward, testing things. They have the data. They have two different data sets, even slightly different approaches. The private market is nowhere near being able to accomplish what they can accomplish from a technology standpoint.
I get it. Let's face it, there's a lot of things I don't want the government personally involved in. And I think that the government in a lot of places needs to shrink. And so what's going on in America today politically, there's much of it that I think is absolutely right. But when you look at probably the largest sector of the economics of this country, when you talk about housing, I think left only to private capital is very dangerous. I think history has pointed that out.
Yeah, you don't have to go back too far in history and remember the S&L crisis. Why did the S&Ls have their crisis? They went long into mortgages, held a lot of product on their books, and we watched that industry blow up.
Well, Fannie and Freddie, if you're keeping score, over the last 40 and 50 years, Fannie and Freddie have had one crisis, and private capital's had about 7.
Yep, very good point. I want to get and talk about where the market is heading when the trends of consolidation, you've already confirmed. What about the housing crisis? What about availability? What is your perspective on that? You're obviously bullish, Bill, about the future. You're out acquiring companies. So a Union Home is getting bigger and bigger. So it's implied that you have a bullish outlook on this. Why?
It's interesting. So if you go back to 2015, in my chairmanship of MBA, half of that speech is canned, the other half changes depending on where things are headed. And part of the canned part of my speech was a pending housing crisis. And I wasn't the only chairman. They had written that for chairman before me and a couple chairmen after me. So for many of us, we saw the fact that Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie were not in the construction business. Obviously, the construction business was all private capital, which tells you why we've had a crisis in housing, because homes were not being built. And also, I'm old enough now that the houses, when the 15 years I was a loan officer and loved every minute of it, the houses I was financing were built right after World War II. And today they're 80 years old. So you have a combination over 25 years, David and Alice, you and I have had this conversation many times. For 25 years, you had not enough homes being built in America because construction loans are even a little bit more risky. You didn't have enough outlets for construction lending, not enough flow of capital. So see what you get with not enough flow of capital. And to this day, we don't have a great product to rehab properties in the inner cities, that were going like gangbusters right after World War II. So the combination of the two has left us with a housing crisis. And last thing I'll say regarding that, in the early 1980s, when interest rates went up more than 2%, I don't want to be Dr. Mike Frantantoni for a moment, so forgive me, my dear friend Mike. Forgive me, Mike. In the early 80s, when interest rates went up 200 basis points in a 12-month period, home prices went down almost 20%. It took 40-some years for that same phenomena to happen. In 2022, 21, 22, interest rates went up 200 basis points in a 12-month period. And instead of home prices coming down 20%, they went up two. They went up two. And that's because of the housing shortage. So as a country, at least now, David and Alice, I think now we're admitting that we have a housing crisis. And now I'm hoping, that, and it's going to take congressional action. This is a national issue. That this cannot be resolved in the communities. It can't be resolved as state. Washington needs to act like adults for a moment, just a moment, and come together and create a plan to really rebuild the housing stock in this country. That's what I believe.
I do think there's a lot of micro market solutions, but that's not going to solve the main problem. So at a federal level, do you have ideas already you think Congress should be thinking about? What could they do?
I think they need to come up with a public-private type of, it could be bonds, it could be, and when bonds, not bond loans, bonds to raise capital that is strictly for finance, new construction, rehab. I think tax credits should be in play. You really have to incentivize private businesses to rebuild the inner cities and also to build more housing. I think there needs to be tax credits, could be part of it. When you look at it, without Alice, you and I, again, without supply and demand being accurate, we're on the precipice for the first time of housing being not for the middle class anymore, not for the poor, not that vehicle to obtain middle class. Housing is becoming a vehicle of the rich because of home prices. Home prices, no matter how wages go up, home prices are going up too high. And there's only one thing that can solve this, David. There's only one thing that can solve the problem. Just one. There's only one solve. There has to be more adequate single-family homes. You can't do it with rentals like after 2008. Everybody just built affordable rent. That doesn't solve it. There's only one solve for this problem, and that is for this country to get behind building more single-family homes.
and less regulation. To spur that on, less regulation. In San Diego, the cost to build a new home, 60% of the sales price is has built-in regulation to
If you, David, to your point, if you don't solve this, the price to pay is that housing becomes for the rich only or for the upper middle class. And if we don't solve this, that's the price you pay. And you can't pin that on the National Association of Realtors. You cannot pin that on the home builders. You can't pin that on the Mortgage Bankers Association. You've got to solve the supply problem.
Yeah, when we were getting ready for this podcast, you talked about the dysfunction of government getting caught up in the housing industry, and I think you just nailed it with that. Let's talk about the credit bureau cartel. That's one of your favorite newest soapboxes. For many of us, it's just so wrong. Talk to us about it, Bill.
Union Home, our run rate today will lose $1.6 million. We will pay the credit bureaus $1.6 million in addition to what we collect from consumers. And every lender across the country has the same problem. In my opinion, my humble opinion, is the credit bureaus hide behind the shield of the lenders because the credit bureaus charge extreme prices for their products, gouging extreme prices, but they don't charge them to the consumer because that would get them in trouble. They charge me. And charging me doesn't get them in trouble with Congress or the feds. And so how collectively my industry has effectively let this happen, and this is where I love the MBA. I'm part of the MBA. I'm part of the brotherhood and sisterhood. But for a moment, I cannot understand why the MBA and others have not gotten more aggressive with the credit bureaus. We need them. We need the credit bureau.
Oh, we need the credit bureaus, but not at these prices.
But they're gouging the lenders. They hide behind us in the form of consumers. They actually, like every other business in America, and Alice, I would love to hear what if you have a product, charge the consumer for the product. Don't charge me. The reason they don't want to charge the consumer is they'd have to charge a consumer fair prices. Me, I could get gouged and nobody cares about the banker, right? So what they are doing and what they are getting away with is unconscionable. And how lenders are dying and starving to pay our bills, dying and starving to stay in business. And I got to pay these people $1.7 million more in 2025 that I'm collecting
than you did in the previous year. Yeah.
And I can't get my association to take action. After 39 years, David, after 39 years, Alice, I have no idea what the hell's going on. I can't, it's almost unconscionable, their behavior, and they keep raising their prices 20-30% a year and justifying it.
There's guys, new voices rising up. Greg Scher is one of them who's trying to shine a light on it. And man, he got smacked down when he raised this up in some LinkedIn post. Really got smacked down.
I can tell you this, their lobbyists in Congress are better than ours. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. They're that is so true, Bill. And it goes to a little bit of the problem. A lot of the problem is who the size of the lobbyists.
$1.7 million, David. $1.7 million of net loss in credit reports at Union Home Mortgage.
Wow, stunning, staggering. And you run it pretty well. You come in. You know how many other? Yeah.
Whatever Lundquist said when Tiger was better than most.
Yeah, you run it better than most. So think of what others are suffering on that. So I want to talk about, on that note, Bill, and I was at the TMC conference. You were one of the founders, TMC, the Mortgage Collaborative up in Dallas this last week. Several people said, Dave, who are you going to be interviewing next? I said, I've got Bill Cosgrove coming on. Alice and I are, and Alice recently retired out of there. And they go, I said, I got some questions that I would love to have you ask Bill and Alice. we have so much respect. You have a lot of admirers, Bill. You started as a loan officer. You bought in 1996, I believe, into your current company that you're at. You came in and joined it. Now you own the whole thing. So a lot of people that are up and comers in this thing are wanting to know your career path. How is it that and then one of the reoccurring questions I got as I started saying, I said, great, I'm here and I'm going to ask other people, what other questions would you like me to ask, Bill? And they all came back and says, what goes on at the executive meetings there? What is the attitude, the approach? Alice gives us some insights into it, but what is that? And so I'm going to go to you, Alice. Let's start with you. You talk oftentimes very complimentary about how open-minded the executive staff is and really how intense the discussions can be around some of the issues. I'm going to start with you. Your perspective, recently retired and out of there. What did you appreciate most about that, or what did you find most amazing?
I can't wait to hear this answer myself.
What?
I can't wait to hear this answer.
Well, you know what I'm going to say? You could probably guess where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with Rudy, right? I'm going to start with the most valuable thing at the company at that executive level. So every single morning at 8 a.m., everybody is at the table who is running a department, leading different teams across the company. And so that's on any given day can be anywhere from 80 to 120 people at 8 a.m. every single morning.
So is Rudy an acronym?
Yes, there's a story. I'll let Bill tell the story. He tells it better than anybody on how the name of the meeting came about. And it's wonderful because when you're trying to handle any communication at the company, especially in training, right? I'm in training. I don't get to talk to everybody. So every morning at 8 a.m., I could listen to, it was a routine. Here are the numbers. Here's where we stand today. Here's our turn times. Every single day, everybody had a full picture of how the company ran the day before. And countless times even a week, there would be like a loan officer could go, hey, I had this issue come up on my system the other day. Did anybody else see this on the closing documents? Is this normal? And someone could go, oh, wait, that was a problem too. I had that too. Oh, wait, we have IT, we have compliance. We've got everybody in the room to jump on it, solve that problem, and problems get solved that morning, sometimes within hours of everyone being at the table. As being in charge of training, I could go, okay, this is happening. I'd walk out of every single meeting. I don't know if Bill knew this, but I'd walk out every single time with a list of 5 things going, okay, we got to get working on this because all this just changed and all this is happening. And now we got to go get the training set up for it. But it was awesome. So and then throughout the day, every day when you said, I needed to get something done, it was always, have you talked to Rudy about it? So having the name for the group, having a noun for this group was also fascinating in being able to get things done in just day-to-day communication. So I could go on and on, but Bill, that's my number one.
Rudy. So that's an acronym. What does Rudy stand for?
It's an old acronym that I really can't share with you that. But I think, David, the distinction in career path was the fact that I don't think any of us know the mortgage business better than anybody else, right? We all know the mortgage business. And so I think it comes down to decisions and executions. And at the end of the day, 7 years ago, when I thought, man, we're a good company. No one's better than us, but they're bigger. And I took a hard look at us and I said, you know what? The people in the business that I admire, the companies I admire, what's the difference? They didn't know the mortgage business better. They didn't have better people. They didn't have any better brain power. I thought what they did was they were faster, and they executed faster, and they made decisions faster and accurate, right? And so as to Alice's point, when we created Rudy years ago and created that quick velocity, let's get the opportunities, let's get the problems on the table, we're all there, let's talk through them. It creates honesty, it creates transparency, it really creates responsibility, right? Because you don't want to say you don't have your homework done in front of your peers, right? So that's to Alice's point, that's the epicenter. And I think at the end of the day, what it's done is it's really made us execute at a world-class level. And we don't know the mortgage business better than anybody else. We're not any more talented than anyone else. I think it's quickness and it's execution. And that's what we worship.
I think, and that gets lost as companies grow, Bill. and Alice. Companies grow, and what is it? They say, what made us so good when we were young is we used to get in a room and we made decisions on the spot of what's happening. I heard Alice say you got 100 some people in on the Rudy call. Would love to
30
know what
minutes.
that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, 30 minutes. And I'll tell you, you can get large and still be nimble. You can get large and still
That's
execute. And that's the magic. And the top companies in our industry and other industries has figured that out. You could do it. You could do it.
But how do you handle the conflicting interest, the inherent challenge between sales and ops in our industry, any industry? It's always been sales and ops. Sales wants this and it's unreasonable, and ops can't, they never deliver, and the ops says they have unrealistic expectations. How do you use a 30-minute Rudy meeting to work through that?
Code of conduct?
Well, we have origination standards
Yeah.
for our loan officers. We have origination standards for our loan officers. We have standards for ops, and everybody has standards, and that creates an open, honest, supportive ecosystem. Alice, what do you think?
Yeah, and that's part of the code of conduct, right? That sales has the respect for ops is a key. Nobody gets across the finish line alone. We always say, Union Home would say, mortgage banking is a team sport. It's not one person who makes it happen. And the code of conduct really was visible every day, and Bill used the word accountability. We are all accountable to each other to research before we react, make sure that we are respectful of each other. And so the conversation that it's going to happen on some loan by loan basis. And occasionally you have someone who does get passionate, I would call it, right? But we're always in that environment, was always respectful, always trying to find out all 8 sides before you react. So we have our mantras that everyone lived every day.
A code of conduct. That's amazing. The second question that I was asked, or was asked to bring up with you, Bill, is you have an uncanny ability to identify, hire, and retain top talent. And I can't think of a better story than Alice Alvey. I was blown away. Alice owned her own company. She sold to Indicom, and then you stole her away and brought her in. And I'm going, what the heck did he have to pay to make that happen? How did you do? But you're willing to invest, Bill, where the need is. That's the question. So a lot of people say, what is Bill's secret sauce for identifying, hiring, and retaining the top talent?
I wouldn't use the word steal, number one, David. I wouldn't use that.
I know, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Don't
Sorry.
use the word steal or stole.
You didn't steal her. You lured her away.
I think, it's what we just talked about. I remember I went to lunch with Al Blank and Jill Ross and Mike Jones. And when I saw that relationship between Mike, head of sales, the sales teams, and Jill, head of ops, and they got along, they talked things through. They talked about the culture. And so I agree. It wasn't a steal. It was, I want to be part of that. I'll start there with how do you
were drawn in. You were drawn in, by culture.
Yeah, drawn by culture.
Okay.
I think that's a great way to put it. So, David, this gives you a big hint. As CEO of Union Home Mortgage, my number one job that I promoted myself to, right? I am the dysfunction police. So no matter how talented you are, and I always tease people, no matter how talented you think you are, because their ego is not short in our industry. If in good days and bad days, when you get your way, when you don't get your way, when the decision is what you wanted versus what you don't want, how you interact with everybody else around you is what really matters. And this industry, you really don't have to beat the competitor, because what ends up happening is the competitor ends up beating themselves because they fight themselves to death. And when you're fighting yourself, you're not getting better and beating the competition. So my number one, and we debate things, we're aggressive, we debate things, we debate problems, opportunities, decisions, but we don't attack each other. And so I think when you say, how do you recruit the type and the amount of talent you do, we just show them who we are. And then it's very powerful when you get 10 people in a room talking about it, and 2 of them have been there 20 years, a couple 15, a couple 10, a couple 5, and a couple 3 or 4 months. It tells a compelling story. And I think that at the end of the day, when I ask people, how many people have left companies that they loved, because of human dysfunction, the dysfunction amongst people.
Right.
And everybody raises their hand. And I said, a union home, we're not perfect. We're going to make a lot of mistakes. I prefer the aggressive mistake. But the one mistake we're not going to make is we're not going to have dysfunctional human relationships.
So good. So important.
Can I add one thing, Dave, on to that?
Please.
So the promises kept is a big one. You'll see that in the logo, but the promises kept to each other. So you get the draw in because you hear about the culture. Then when you get there, you find out this is real. There's no such thing as another shoe that drops, and you go, oh, wait a minute, it was just talk. It's real, and you are accountable to each other. So that actually makes it a difficult environment for some people, because when you say, I'm going to call you back by the end of the day, you really do call somebody back by the end of the day. It's not just fluff in the air words. You really have to, or you won't make it there. And so you get this group who is so committed to personal accountability and accountability to each other. And that's what helps hold, I think, a big key of holding things together.
Yeah. One last point I want to make, Dave, that's really important. So at Union Home, when you obtain, as a loan officer, when you obtain President's Club level, we sit you down and say, congratulations, we're happy you're part of the President's Club. Every company has a President's Club, but in many places, being part of the President's Club gives you the ticket and the free pass to be ornery and do what you want and throw your weight around. I'm the big producer, you have a job because of me, and so forth. Union Home, we set you down and we say, now that you're in the President's Club and you're one of our top producers, we expect more out of you when it comes to behavior, setting the example, being a good team player. And they have all bought into that over the years. And I will tell you one of the things I'm most proud of is our top loan officers are truly world-class human beings. And they're loved by the staff, they're loved by their assistants, and they really set the tone for the rest of the sales staff, is to take responsibility for your loan files, take responsibility for the relationship with the customer. We'll deliver on our side, but they do a world-class job originating a loan, communicating with customers, and communicating with the inside staff. So really, without that, there's no magic. There's just talk. The top loan officers at Union Home, which are always evolving, they have all bought into this behavior, and they're a special group.
Yeah. I'm always honored to get a chance to spend some minutes with you, whether it be at a conference. I enjoy you as a human being. I enjoy you as a father and a good husband, all those wonderful attributes, and just an amazing leader in our industry. And Alice, I'm so glad you've attained retirement out of a major leadership role at an awesome company. Congratulations to you as well. Thank you both for being here today. I love the discussion. It's really good. A lot of takeaways for our listeners.
Thank
you, David. I'll tell you that given the climate we're in the country, these type of podcasts and these type of communication and program, and not only my voice and Alice's, yours, but others, I think getting it out and telling the story of mortgage lending, mortgage finance, is very important, and it's more important now than ever. So we want to salute you as well on your success and
thank you,
and what you've done for the industry all these years. I appreciate it, brother.
At this point, if I could just create a platform and a microphone for leaders like you to come on, and then I've done a great service to the industry. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed this special podcast with Bill Cosgrove and my Alice Alvey, one of the regulars on the podcast. I want to say a special thank you to our sponsors, Byte Software, Finastra, Angel AI, True, Candid Inc., the Mortgage Bankers Association of America, Lenders One, the Mortgage Collaborative, Mobility MMI, Modex, Redder, and Knowledge Coop. Thank you all for being here. Share this podcast with your associates and others, and repost it when you see it on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for being here. Have success. Remember, this industry needs your voice. Make sure your voice is heard. If you don't have a voice, use our voice and share it around. Thank you, folks. Have a blessed day.
You've been listening to Lickin' on Lending. Our passion is to bring you the latest insights, trends, and updates from the world of mortgages. So on this show, if you're a seasoned industry veteran or just getting started, it's your go-to source for all things mortgage. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Lickin' on Lending. You've been listening to Lickin' on Lending. Our passion is to bring you the latest insights, trends, and updates from the world of mortgages. So on this show, if you're a seasoned industry veteran or just getting started, it's your go-to source for all things mortgage. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Lickin' on Lending.